Joined today by James. He's joining us today to talk about ADHD, about his experiences in his personal life and at work, and some tips for you if you think that you might have it.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, James Koppert. I'm from the Youth Voice and Creative Engagement team, and I cover Scarborough and Rydal, but cover SEND county-wide. I also have ADHD myself, and outside of work, I run an ADHD consultancy organisation where I support people and try to kind of advocate and make changes within different organisations and schools and education settings. So yeah, it stands for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder, and yeah, there's three types of ADHD. So there's predominantly hyperactive, predominantly inattentive, and then what most people have, which is a mixture of the both. So the hyperactive version is the one that is kind of most well known, and mainly because people that are hyperactive get pushed more into diagnosis. And then we've got the inattentive version, which is more kind of daydreamy, and then the mixture of both is obviously, you know, can zone out and is hyperactive.
When did you find out that you had ADHD, and what were the sort of signs that maybe your family or your school picked up on?
Yeah, I was diagnosed really young because I was such a problem, really. I used to sleep sometimes 1 hour in 24 hours as a toddler, and as a baby I really had like sensory overload as well, so I'd just scream and cry most of the time, so I was absolutely awful. And then I was in hospital a lot because I was that hyperactive. I kept falling over and hurting myself and running into things. So yeah, I was kind of pushed for diagnosis. It was recognised my hyperactivity was so extreme from a really young age. Yeah, and we still, even, you know, I've heard social workers and teachers say, you know, once they've got a label that they've always got that, and it's not a label, it's a diagnosis, and it's one we wouldn't kind of not want to find out if we've got angina or any of these other labels, but with neurodiversity we do, and that's automatically ableist in its language because it's saying that it's something negative. You know, I'm very proud of my ADHD. It creates problems for me, but also has enabled me to do lots of different things as well, which I probably wouldn't do without having the condition. And it's also just trying to create that acceptance. It's not something we should be ashamed of, and actually early diagnosis statistically enables more likelihood to stay in school, more likelihood to stay in employment, more likelihood to be in long-term relationships as an adult, less likely to commit crime, less likely to have problems with drug and alcohol, but not only for them, for their children as well, just by getting that early diagnosis in their lives. There's been studies over 40 years that have demonstrated this. So neurotypical are people who are kind of the majority of the general population makeup, and they're the kind of the typical brain structures that work in the ways that kind of the mainstream way of thinking and working. So neurodiverse are people with different brain structures or different brain functioning. So that categorizes everything from ADHD to autism to Tourette, dyslexia, dyscalculia, dyspraxia, and all those kind of different brain styles and brain ways of working. One of my kind of trademark statements is always there's a massive difference between seeing yourself as a successful neurotypical person, neurodiverse person, than a failed neurotypical person. So, you know, there's certain things that I struggle to do. You know, one of the examples I always talk about, I have to take medication and at certain times of the day, and it's literally a few meters away from my desk here. And in that time that I go to get my medication, I can forget because of my ADHD and get distracted, or even go in the kitchen and forget while I'm there. So I have to kind of set alarms on my phone, and I pause them, because if I even it didn't go off again, then I'd forget to take it. And if I was neurotypical, I just think I was absolutely useless and mad, or just really stupid. Whereas I can forgive myself with that, and also I can put things in place to support the other things without being hard on myself and seeing myself as failed. I can support myself with technology or routines to allow myself to do the things that I find difficult, and then embrace the other side of the positive aspects as well. So it just psychologically creates a massive difference. And also when other people know as well, you get that kind of that acceptance and level of support, rather than seeing you as strange or difficult or having difficulties that you shouldn't do. So office environment, it can be really distracting if different people are talking about different things. My brain hears everyone's conversation all at once, but then my cognitive thoughts are there that are not subconscious, they're actually cognitive as going on as well. So I'll even be thinking almost as a conversation in my head that I need to zone out from everyone. So I'm talking in my head and everyone else is talking at the same time, and it's very hard to then kind of focus. It's those type of things that are really difficult, and open plan offices can be quite a difficult environment for ADHD to manage. So it's utilising technology, and just being aware and forgiving of yourself as well, and explaining to colleagues and other people. I used to have headphones on and people thought I was rude, but again, that distracts my mind enough to allow me to concentrate, but without being too distracting like their conversations were as well. So it's all those little things. But the positives, for example, ADHD thinks on their feet. You can throw them in an environment with young people in a youth club with, like, say an artist was coming to do a project and their car's broke down and they can't make it. Within a few seconds I can come up with something and engage with young people and get my energy comes out and really come up with new ideas and different ways of thinking. And one of the great things about ADHD we see is the creative mind, and how you could have 100 people in a room that are neurotypical looking at a problem, and someone with ADHD can just walk in and look at it a completely different way.
Yeah, and it sounds like your job now, it sounds like there's a lot of human interaction in that, a lot of, interacting with young people. And was that a choice that you sort of purposely made because that's where your strengths lie, do you think?
I think so, yeah. I was targeted as a young person by youth workers because I was struggling and getting a bit of trouble myself as a young person, and from that I started doing workshops with other young people as a young teen, and then we kind of went from there, and I got a job doing kind of creative arts and youth work in CYC, and it's just, I think I can relate to young people as well, and they can relate to me. You often find a lot of people with ADHD just end up in this type of work accidentally anyway, because it is our strengths, just kind of doing that. So we do find a lot of social workers, teachers, kind of frontline workers that's to do with human interaction.
Just wondering as well, a manager does anything particularly to support you?
Yeah, so I'm really lucky. My manager's absolutely brilliant, and she came to my day's training as well to learn more about it and how she can support me and how she even phrases language, everything. So she's really supportive. My manager knows that I do have weaknesses that I need extra support in, and by the way that so Nikki doesn't get cross in terms of reminding me numerous times that I've done that, because she could send me an email to do something and I'm in the middle of doing it, but then I get another email, I get distracted, and then I completely forget, and so she'll remind me again. And it's those type of things. So it's a little bit more work for her, but then I hope that the positive side allows me to kind of shine with the things like the actual one-to-one work, and the group work is more my strengths anyway.
So something that as a council we're really trying to think about is creating an inclusive culture.
I think it's looking at things from a kind of not the medical model of disability where it's we need to kind of adapt to society, and it's looking at that social model. So creating environments from the beginning that automatically allow us to thrive, because what works for neurodiversity, if you make a room that's good for people with autism and ADHD, it'll be good for everyone. So it doesn't have to be kind of this thing that's difficult. It's looking at it from that kind of viewpoint, that from if we make it right for those that have those extra needs, then it's going to work for everyone. So thinking about smells, sounds, way thick spaces are created and more adapted, and you'll find that neurotypical people thrive in those environments as well. We kind of, especially in England, are very stuck in our ways in terms of this is what an office looks like and this is what works really well, and we need to kind of rethink that. And by talking to people with disabilities, with learning impairments, visual impairments, and creating spaces that are open to everyone, you'll find that everyone thrives in them, not just those that with disabilities.
There might be people listening to this podcast who are sort of recognising signs in their own behaviour, and I just wanted to know what advice you have for those people.
We're seeing it especially with females late diagnosis, because females tend to have the inattentive version, and I think that's more to do with kind of how we bring up genders rather than differences in the brain, but that's a massive discussion for here. But
yeah, it's a whole other discussion, isn't it?
It is, yeah. But I think we've seen now with more awareness that more females are actually kind of realizing that they potentially have ADHD as well, which is really positive. So it's looking at what I recommend is to look at those traits, do some research, and write all the traits down. And then once you've got that written down, take that to your GP straight away as well. Don't wait, don't think about it. If you haven't got it, the GP will send you away anyway. But the waiting list at the moment are 2 years in North Yorkshire, which is, you know, a really long time. So yeah, get to your doctors, get diagnosed, because we need it also for statistically to realise actually how much of our communities have this condition. But it is something to be proud of, and people that do get diagnosed are normally, I had someone this week who got diagnosed with after my support, and they're always in tears because they just feel liberated. It's that acceptance and self-forgiveness as well for all the things they've been hard on themselves.